Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
To become a devotee.
Please accept my obeisances, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we'll just start in 2 minutes, Prabhuji.
Sure. Will I start with Jairada Madhav or you will sing it on your local side? Because there is sometimes incoherence in that.
Yes. Prabhuji, then we'll sing here.
Why Mother
Yes,
Yasoda to this group? I offer my obeisance. I offer my obeisance to your most aware Srimati Radharani and
Should I begin, Ramchandru?
Go, you can, please.
Am I audible?
Oh, what else? Something is here. Just
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.
yes, we can. Thank you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutaha Padkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratushe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, just a few seconds introduction, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Antardvipa Prabhu. His Grace Antardvipa Prabhu did his bachelor's and master's from IIT Kharagpur, and with a life of, and with a desire to serve Srila Prabhupada's movement, he joined as a full-time Saffron Brahmachari devotee who is in the renounced order. And Prabhuji is also the director of Voice, the entire youth preaching in Pune. He's the director of it. Prabhuji is like the right-hand man of Radheshyam Prabhu. We can speak a lot about Prabhuji, about how many services Prabhuji has done and how mature he is. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for agreeing to your association.
Hare Krishna. It is my great fortune to be in some way a servant to all of you. All of you are very much dear to Radha Gopi Vallabha. I recently, when there was the 50th anniversary of Radha Gopi Vallabha, so we got to hear some nice sessions by. I heard only His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj and partially His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, but it was a great joy to hear and understand the glory of so much dedication has gone in making that temple what we have there. So many great souls have visited and made that place a very auspicious place. It has got the blessings of Srila Prabhupada personally, and you are actually extremely blessed to be there. And I also know that His Grace Radheshampu had gone to Boston and was there. He was very deeply appreciating His Grace Vanmali Pandit Prabhu, sharing his dedication to serve the mission through all his family responsibilities and everything which happens for every grihastha. His dedication takes the project ahead beyond all these requirements of family life. So I always very much actually wonder how grihasthas take such responsibilities, because I personally, as a brahmachari, I'm not able to do so much. But when I see a grihastha senior Vaishnava do, so I just feel great reverence, and I feel very great privilege that I can some way serve Prabhuji. So today, by the grace of His Grace Ramchand Prabhu, I'm trying to share something from the learnings that I had from Srila Prabhupada and the other great devotees, and we will be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam today from the 9th
Prabhuji,
and the regular verse.
Prabhuji, we also have Muktamanya Prabhu, who is Prabhupada's disciple.
Oh, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
And we have His Grace Vanmali Pandit Prabhu, who is sitting here, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
And all other devotees, they stay here, Prabhuji. The youth devotees, they stay in the temple here. And
Jai. Thank you very much for showing me around, because of course the camera is so far that I can only get some Doordarshan. But still, the glance of the Vaishnavas over me will purify my heart, and it is my very great fortune to some way be there with all of you, without traveling by flights, within the COVID period, still being there. So with this, I would like to begin with your blessings, and for speaking something, repeating in the parampara for your pleasure and for the pleasure of Shri Radha Gopi Vallabha and Srila Prabhupada. So should I share the screen to share the verse, or do you have the verse local? Yeah.
You can share, Prabhuji.
Okay. So we are reading from the 9th canto, 6th chapter, 48th verse. So this is the verse. So this is a section of Shaubari Muni. I believe all of you must have every day heard about what is going on. But just to give you a brief. So Shaubari Muni is a great ascetic. He's trying to do a lot of tapasya, and at one time he got to see some two fishes going through some sexual interaction, and then he became agitated. He went on to marry 50 girls, the daughters of Mandata, and then he's enjoying with them in grihastha life, or he's basically now into the material enjoyment. And now comes a section where he's in retrospect seeing what he has gone through. So this is the text 48. Evam griheshu avirato Vishayan vividhai sukhai Sevamano na chatushyat Ajyesto kai ivanala Evam griheshu avirato Vishayan vividhai sukhai Sevamano na chatushyat Ajyaso kai ivanala. Okay, you also repeat, maybe I'll keep it brief so as to go to the sections. Prabhuji can.
Evam griheshu avirato Vishayan vividhai sukhai Sevamano na chatushyat Evam griheshu avirato
विषयानि विधय सुखै
विषयानि विधय सुखै
विद्वानो न चतुष्याद
सेवमानो न चतुष्याद
आज्यस्तोके इवानलः
आज्यस्तोके इवानलः
एवं गृहेषु विरतो
एवं गृहेषु विरतो
विषया विविधा सुखै
विषया विविधै सुखै
सेवमानो न चतुष्याद
सेवमानो न चतुष्याद
आज्यस्तोके इवानलः
आज्यस्तोके इवानलः.
Word to word, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Evam,
Evam,
in this way,
in this way,
Griheshu,
Griheshu,
in household affairs,
in household affairs,
Abhirataha,
Abhirataha,
being always engaged,
being always engaged,
Vishayan,
Vishaya,
material paraphernalia,
material paraphernalia,
Vividai,
Vividai,
with varieties of,
with varieties of
Sukhai,
Sukhai,
happiness,
happiness,
Sevamanaha,
Sevamanaha,
enjoying,
enjoying,
Na,
Na,
not,
not,
Cha,
Cha,
also,
also,
Patushyat,
Atushyat,
satisfying him,
satisfied him,
Ajyastokai,
Ajyastokai,
by drops of fat,
by drops of fat,
Iva,
Eva,
like,
like,
Analaha,
Anara,
a fire.
a fire.
Translation. In this way, Shauburi Muni enjoyed sense gratification in the material world, but he was not at all satisfied. Just as a fire never ceases blazing if constantly supplied with drops of fat. Purport. Material desire is just like a blazing fire. If a fire is continually supplied with drops of fat, the fire will increase more and more and never be extinguished. Therefore, the policy of trying to satisfy material desires by catering to one's material demands will never be successful. In modern civilization, everyone is engaged in economic development, which is another way of constantly dropping fat into the material fire. The Western countries have reached the summit of material civilization, but people are still dissatisfied. Real satisfaction is Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 5.29, where Krishna says, Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam yatma mam shantim ichchati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wishers of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. One must therefore take to Krishna consciousness and advance in Krishna consciousness by properly following the regulative principles. Then one can attain an eternal, blissful life in peace and knowledge. Hare Krishna. So I'll speak in between. Sometimes I may show something on the slide. Okay. So Prabhupada is primarily in this purport trying to help us appreciate through the section that material desires do not get satisfied by trying to fulfill them. Rather, they become more and more enhanced. Just like when you put ghee in fire or fat in fire, then the fire will not get extinguished, but it will become enhanced. And then Prabhupada tells the solution is actually Krishna consciousness, and Krishna consciousness means we actually try to satisfy Krishna. He is the Bhokta. And when we do that by following the regulative principles, we can actually attain eternal blissful life. And Prabhupada also mentions about that modern civilization is trying to do economic development, which is actually corresponding to increasing the fire by putting more and more ghee into it. So we will try to discuss something on how, although one thinks that sense gratification will satisfy, but actually it increases the problem. It doesn't satisfy, rather it increases the burning of material desires. So one example which is given here is also told by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nitya vairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurenana nainacha. So he says that Avritam jnanam etena, when the pure consciousness gets covered by the eternal enemy, jnanino nitya vairina. Nitya vairina means eternal enemy. So who is the eternal enemy? Kamarupena, in the form of lust. O Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Tushpurena analena cha. So this is corresponding to the same analogy. He says it can never be satisfied, just like fire. So fire, when it is put more and more ghee, it just burns more. So Prabhupada writes a beautiful purport there. I would like to read that. Maybe I can show you also. Just one second. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maithunagar, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. So, and the point is, the living entity is thinking that, I'm getting benefited by enjoying sense gratification, because he thinks senses are actually the means for enjoyment, but the senses, when they are covered by kama, by lust, they actually cause him to degrade, entangle, and only face so much more misery. Like you have seen a moth enters fire. A moth enters fire. Now it doesn't make any sense to us. Why should he enter fire and burn himself? But when the senses demand, oh, this looks such a bright light, he just enters that fire and he gets burned. A fish is attracted to the bait which is hanging from the fishing rod, and he feels joy. It's such a amazing sight. Food is there. I am here. Let's have it. But he doesn't know that as he eats the food, along with the food is going the hook, which is going inside his, his body, and then he will be pulled out. So sense enjoyment looks pleasurable in the beginning, but it is the cause of suffering in the end. And that is also told by Krishna when he says, Vishendriya samyogat yattad agre mitopamam pariname vishamiva tat sukham raja samsmitam. He says that happiness which is derived from the contact of the senses with their objects, which appear like nectar at first but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. So when the sense and sense object come together, usually the jiva thinks, I will get happiness, joy. I got the object that I was looking for. But because of being in touch with the sense object, actually he is breeding dukkha. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yehi sansparshaja bhoga. When some sparsh happens, ja means to be born. What is born? Bhoga, from enjoying propensity. What is actually born there is dukkha yonaya evate. It is the dukkha yoni. So dukkha yona evate means just like a child comes out after 9 months. Initially, when the sense and sense object comes together, one feels joy. I got some relief from whatever hankering was there, and that is what is called as happiness, according to the living entity. The living entity considers it as happiness, but actually it is the relief from the suffering he had of the hankering. He had a hankering. Oh, I should get that object. Till that object was not existing, he had no hankering for it. Like, in the very simple context of India, before the British came to India, there was no tea. But now people think, without tea, how can we live? So before the sense object existed, there was no hankering for the object. And now it is so much important that without that we can't live. So without the sense object, the senses are actually peaceful. But when the sense object comes in touch with the sense, then the hankering gets not vanquished, rather it gets further enhanced. And it is actually breeding ground for further misery. Dukkha yonaya evate. And then adi antwanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. And it is a fleeting life. Initially it gives joy, but later suffering. So a very intelligent person does not take pleasure in such short-term, short-sighted happiness. So the point is that we are having senses which are impure, but they dictate something which is not good for us because of contaminated senses, like because of contamination of the modes. Sorry. So if you see, like I'm seeing with my specs, so if my specs are red colored, so I will see everything red. So the modes actually cover our vision. So, like say, none of us is attracted to stool, but a pig's senses are very much attracted to stool. And for him, hot stool is better than, like wet stool is better than dry stool. But for us, both are stool. Maybe halwa is good, but wet stool or dry stool doesn't make a difference. It's all abominable. And if you take a pig to a city where all the gutters are closed and they're like, there's no open drains, so you say, no, there is no life only here. It's all black and white. There is no colors in this world. You will feel very dissatisfied. Even if everything is clean, actually you will feel uncleanliness as very painful because he has got his modes. Similarly, if you see crows, where do crows stay? Crows stays usually in the garbage when they are fighting over the garbage. Have you ever seen a swan in the same garbage bin fighting over them? Never. So actually, according to the modes that we have, we delight in certain sense objects. And this impure senses dictate that will give you pleasure. But like a drunkard is lying in the gutter and he's, I don't know, in America whether that is allowed or not. In India, it is the scene that some drunkards are lying in the gutter and then they're like completely drunk, so they don't know what's life going around them. And then sometimes even ants are all over and so much garbage is all over. And then they're just happy in that ignorant state of existence, apparently happy, And if you go and you see them, you feel, my God, he's suffering so much. And then you try to pick him up and you have to literally beat him to give him some sense of existence around what is going on. So he's suffering, but he doesn't think he's suffering. So it takes some amount of more goodness to come to appreciate that actually I'm not satisfied with this life. People in gross ignorance just think that is what is life. They're suffering, but they're thinking they're enjoying. Another graphic example is people make horror movies, Well, horror movie, people pay for a horror movie and they basically want to pay for getting frightened. Now to become afraid by seeing something you're paying, it doesn't make sense. But in Tamoguna, you feel happy in enjoying getting fearful. So it doesn't make sense, but that is Tamoguna enjoyment. Person harms himself, person smoking, drinking, so many sense objects that people are having. People are trying, but then they're not happy. They're actually suffering. So that be the case in terms of the modes, that how modes are troubling. But actually the senses are truly the source of happiness when they are engaged in Krishna's seva. But when they are engaged according to the modes, they are actually a suffering and they cause no satisfaction also, but they demand more and more. So some examples that Acharyas gave, very beautiful examples, like the desert has a mirage. How many of you seen a mirage? Okay. Not only in a desert, even on a road when there is a lot of sunlight, sometimes you just see the mirage in front. So mirage looks like water, and in the desert when you're really hankering for water, then you just say, oh, I will get it now, water. But as soon as you go nearer, it goes a little further. So it is happiness in view, but never experienced. So the happiness, many times people are imagining a lot about what he will get, but he never gets it. He never gets that. Sometimes people think that itna or if I just work this much more, then I can get real happiness. Say he got into IIT, like when I was in my college days. So I got into IIT and people thought IIT is like heaven, But when I went to heaven, people were drunkards and smokers and woman mongers, and then they were so miserable and they were thinking, okay, if I get this happiness, that happiness, and if I get a career, okay, sir, okay, you get a career, you get a girl, you get wine, everything. But still they're unhappy. Now I want some more money, and then I want some more promotion, and then there is envy, and there is so much trouble. So where is the happiness? So the person thinks, just if I cross this point, then I will get happy. This point. There is no end. It's all just like another example is given of a donkey who has a carrot hanging. The person is sitting on his back and hanging a carrot in front of him through a rod. And then as soon as, so the donkey thinks, amazing, the carrot is just 2 feet ahead of me. Let me walk to the carrot. And as he walks, the carrot moves 2 feet ahead. So it's always 2 feet ahead, and he thinks it's just so near. So one should know that what one is actually thinking will give happiness it's almost there, but it will never come to us. So no material object has ever given any satisfaction to anyone. But then the living entity is still caught up in trying to do that. The entire world is caught up. How? Prabhupada says that there is a little happiness kept. So that little happiness keeps us attached to the entire suffering program and entire plan making program. That much suffering is so that way happiness is kept that we can remain attached to the suffering. Chalta hai. So one great example, one graphic example, story is told in the Shastras. They say that one time one man went into the forest to search for happiness. So behind him came a tiger running. The tiger was running, and then he ran to save himself, and then he jumped into a well, and then he caught a tree branch, and then he saw that the tiger is growling above, but he saw that actually below is a big snake, and he can be eaten anytime by the snake, but he's just hanging from the tree branch, and if the tree branch gets broken, then he will be lost. And then he sees that actually there are 2 rats, one black and one white, and both are eating on that tree branch. And then he sees that because he jumped into the well, there is one honeycomb, and that honeycomb has got disturbed, and the bees are biting him. They are continuously biting him. And then through it all, he's getting bites all over. He's having a tiger above, and there are 2 rats biting his, the only shelter of the tree branch. And then if he loses that, he's into the snake's mouth. And through it all, from the beehive is dripping some honey. And somehow 1-2 drops land on his tongue. Joy. He says, after all, life is not so easy. So that's the situation. The living entity is constantly being chased after by the threefold miseries, and at the same time he constantly be chased after by the fourfold miseries: birth, old disease, death, and then there is this Kala Sarpa which is going to swallow him, and the 2 rats day and night are actually biting over the branch, and he will be one day completely swallowed by the death. But the beehive, the bees are biting, which is the threefold miseries, and then there is this honey, little bit pleasure. And he feels joy. I'm getting some pleasure. So in this material world, everyone is suffering. When Srila Prabhupada went to the West, he saw they had multi-story buildings, but people are jumping from the top of the building and committing suicide. So Prabhupada said, if they're happy from their advancement, then why are they committing suicide? So, well, they started closing the rooftops, analyzing that people jump from the rooftop. So people started jumping from the windows because you don't need the rooftop for jumping because it's a multi-story building. So anyway, you can jump from the window also. It is not that because the top of the roof is open, so they thought better jump. They are unhappy within, that's why they are jumping. In India, in some college, they saw that many suicides are happening. And most of the suicides people are doing because, by hanging from the fan. So they replace the fans with ACs. But the problem is that they're not, it's not like because it was too hot, so they hang to themselves from fan. So they hang some other way, they kill themselves some other way. The problem is that the jiva is unhappy and the jiva is trying to find out means in the wrong place. And then someone may say, no, it's not like that. I see so many people actually saying that it's happy place, it's not so bad a place. So it's like do paise ka circus, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to tell the story. I'll little bit, make it a modern context. Not very much, but just to change a little bit. So Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur used to say, so 2 paisa means, paisa is a denomination in India. You can call it 2 cents, maybe. Cents goes on there? What goes on? 2 cents. Okay. So in 2 paisa, no circus comes in India. So he said, so one time it was announced there is 2 paise ka circus, 2 paisa only, the person, and you can alone watch the entire circus for 2 paisa. So people just lined up, amazing, the entire circus alone for me. I'm the center of the show and everyone is going to perform for me. Jai, I'm there for the program. So everyone lined up in that, because one will go inside. So everyone was lined up and reporters were there. They were thinking, okay, what will I, what's going to happen? And the first candidate was like, first show, first time, I'm going to watch. And he got in. And when he got in, he was sitting on the chair and then someone came and said, so what are you doing? He said, I've come to see the circus. Circus? How much money you paid? 2 paisa. He said, have you ever seen circus in 2 paisa? It's written outside, 2 paisa, circus. I'm going to see. Circus? Now we'll show you the circus. Then, he beats him down. Boom, boom, boom. But you wanted to show me circus. This is the circus. How you became a joker? This boom, 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 boom. He gets beaten up by the couple of those fellows. And then, he understands this is the 2 paise ka circus. And then he comes out. And he's almost beaten down to, very bad shape. But then he sees that everyone is waiting for him. So, sir, how did you find the circus? Well, he realizes he's in the limelight now. So he, quickly combs up his hair and says, oh, what are you saying? Circus. It was the most amazing circus. Everyone must watch it. There's no exception. This is the best circus. Everyone must have it. It's historical. It's amazing. So he was like, because he didn't want to prove himself the fool, So anyway, he moves on. And now the second candidate gets more excited. Jai, I am the second one. And he goes in and he gets the same one. He gets the beatings. But by now he knows what has happened to the first fellow. But now how should he come and tell that I became the second fool? So he comes and says, actually, you know what? I got what the first fellow did not get. It's just amazing. It's getting better every time. So he goes ahead. And then the reporters are making it a big publicity in the TV. What's going on here? And everyone goes in like that and gets fooled. And that's what is going on in the world. People think that there is something. When I was a college boy, I just got Krishna consciousness, and one of my uncles, he met me. He thought that this fellow is going towards something that maybe not so good for him. Let him enjoy life. So what he told me. So this is a question for you. You have to answer if you can. Otherwise, I will tell the answer. But let's see. So he told me a statement that helped me to. I got approved that I should go on with Krishna consciousness, although he was trying to dissuade me. You know what he said? He said, "Beta, I'll tell it in Hindi and then I will tell it in English." He said, "Beta, dekh, abhi maja kar le, baad mein to hamari tarah hi hona hai." You know? He said, enjoy life now. Later on, you have to work hard like us only. So I thought, yeah, you helped me to understand that I should continue Krishna consciousness. I didn't tell him, but I was considered. I contemplated on his statement, and I understood that he's indirectly telling me to continue. So can anyone tell me how he told me indirectly that I should just go on with Krishna consciousness? What could have been my contemplation on that? Anyone? I don't know whether your Bhagavatam can be interactive like that, but I thought a Zoom session is a little more difficult to keep people awake, so I should keep some. Okay, I think I will tell. Okay, Ramchandru wants to try. Okay, someone has written, Palashpu has written, right now you're suffering and later he tells there is more suffering. Okay, yes, something more.
I felt like when the uncle said, your uncle said that enjoy now, later on anyways you have to work hard. So it appears that the working hard later is the price that you're paying for so-called enjoyment now.
Okay, you're close. So thank you, Prabhu. I will share what actually I thought. You see, I have met devotees also, and I saw that they're happy now. They're working. It's not like they're not having a life in the world, but still, along with that, they're happy in Krishna consciousness. They're having such a blissful time in preaching Krishna consciousness, doing so much of service to Krishna, and they're so happy. And those who are old in Krishna consciousness, they're even happier, like the sannyasis or the great souls, and they're these most inspirational personalities. They are not saying, better you enjoy now, later you will have to be like us only, Buddha ho jayenge. The old fellows are more enjoying than the young fellows. So I understood, if I walk the path of my uncle, I will enjoy now and then suffer later. And if I walk the path of these devotees, I will enjoy now and I will enjoy even more later. So it's very obvious I should not go this path, because he's already telling the conclusion of this path. Nectar in the beginning, poison in the end. But these devotees are saying nectar now and nectar later and nectar forever. So I didn't have any, second thoughts. I understood. Thank you, Chachaji. Thank you, uncle, for telling me the truth of this matter life. Hari bol, bye bye. So I had a good realization from his realization. So the point is, the people in this world are actually having a do paise ka circus only. They are not having real happiness, but they have to project. If you ask anyone, how are you? What does he say? As soon as you ask him, how are you? What is the response? I'm fine, thank you. No one is fine, but everyone has a natural response, like a reflex action. I'm fine, thank you. No one is fine. Even a person lying on the bed with cancer, he says, I'm fine. So there is no, it is just a, like, what do we say? Sheer lie if you follow that program. So a person who is truly searching for happiness has to come to knowledge. So there is a very beautiful verse. I'll tell this verse and maybe in 3 minutes I will end. Kama dinam katina katida palita durnideshas tesham jatamaina karuna na trapa no pashanti Usrajatanath yadupate sampratam labdha buddhis kamayata sharanam abhayam mamyung swantadasya. He says, Kamadinam katina. Kamadi means all these masters of mind, lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion. How many desires they have? Oh my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted desires, orders of these lusty desires. They have given so much order to me. And although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O Yadupate, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted desires, orders of these, unwanted orders of these desires. And I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. So, when the devotee, the living entity, understands that actually what is good for him, when he wakes up to the reality of this world, he understands that this enjoyment, which I somehow call enjoyment, is basically the hankering which comes because of impure senses. Then he understands that I should not follow the order of these impure senses. Rather, I should purify these senses by engaging in Krishna's loving service. And that makes him actually gradually move from impure senses to semi-pure senses to pure senses to ecstatic senses. So what does it mean? I will just show it, tell in 2 minutes. So from impure senses, that means those who consider harmful things as joyful, like smoking cigarette or thinking, lust, anger, pride, envy, illusion as something enjoyable. So from impure senses, one goes to semi-pure senses. Semi-pure means he still has hankering for those things, but he knows they are not good for him. So he says, oh, this is not good for him. So he can see things before acting on them in the wrong way. And then pure senses means when he can see them as actually impure only, and he doesn't have any hankering for it. But then the ecstatic senses are those where they're so absorbed in Krishna, they don't even consider sense object. They don't have to consider. It's not like he's thinking it's good for me or bad for me. He doesn't have to consider it. He can only delight in Krishna consciousness. So when we become pure devotees of Krishna, there is a pure delight. But before that, when we come to the mode of goodness, we have pure senses where we can see things as they are. What is the right thing? What is the wrong thing? But the stage before, when there is a mixed modes, there we can see the lower thing as bad, but we still have some hankering for it. So we should keep ourselves in the right understanding of life. Once Radha Gopinath was sharing one simple incident, but very graphic for all of us. So he said, one boy came to me, he said, I don't want to practice Krishna, it's too much, you all have bound me, so much. I don't want to follow Krishna. So he was speaking in Hindi, of course, it gives a different rasa. So then, anyway, so then Radha Gopinath said, tell me what happened. He said, oh, I was just going by the street. I saw a nice poster of a movie. And then I thought, oh, this is not a devotee movie. I can't watch. Oh, then I was walking a little and I saw the samosa. In India, there is thela-walas and all that. I saw nice samosas and vada pav and I thought I will eat. But oh, this is not prasadam. I could not eat. Then someone banged onto my car and I was just about to speak some, improper words, but then, oh, this is not, proper language for a devotee. Hey, you have bound me, Baba. I don't want to follow this Krishna. You have completely bound. So then Radha Gopinath told, Prabhu, you have become Krishna conscious. Prabhu, give me the dust of your lotus feet. You are so Krishna conscious. So this devotee thought, Prabhu, what you are saying? I should give the dust of my feet to you. I become Krishna conscious. Please explain. I thought I am in Maya. He said, Prabhu, you are always conscious of what is not pleasing to Krishna, and you are always saying that I will not take it because you are always conscious of what is Krishna's desire. So you are Krishna conscious, Prabhu, Krishna conscious. He said, really, Prabhu? Oh, then if that is the case, if this is Krishna, then I'm happy. Okay. So in the initial stage, the senses will get attracted, but the mind, the intelligence should say, not good for me. Because why? The heart is given to Krishna. And the heart is given to Krishna and fights the war. Then he will rise to purity. So I'm sorry, I could not really manage my time, but I think I will close here. It's 6:43 already. So if there's any question, maybe we can take 2 minutes. I'm sorry. I prepared a little more, but then I'm not able to. Yeah. Please, any question? No question then.
Only one question. Like you were talking of this example for this initial days, the senses get attracted, and on intellectual platform, you convince yourself that no. And say, very in the similar, if you see, like for devotees also, one may feel like in early stages, like myself, when say services come and when we incorporate Krishna consciousness in our lives, services comes, responsibilities come, additional things come. So not all the time when we render services, you get transcendental pleasure. Sometimes we get pleasure, sometimes we don't. So Pooji, doesn't it look very similar to that example also? The honeybee, the person sticking at, is intellectual platform the only basis on which you convince yourself?
Well, we have a lot of ananda in our spiritual life, and sometimes we have to fight with this intellectual stuff. You know? Like, it doesn't take too much of an intellect to dance in Guru Puja. You know? You just relish it. It doesn't take too much of an intellect to enjoy prasadam. You know? So some things come very naturally. Who in this world is enjoying the kind of foodstuffs that we enjoy? You know? The poor fellows are going to gym to just slim themselves. We dance in the Guru Puja and that's enough for us living. No? Actually, we are having a very great time. Book distribution and youth preaching or whatever preaching. If you do preaching, it gives such a taste. So where is the, it's not intellectual. You forget your dinner when you go for preaching. So usually we should also experience the joy which is natural in the process of Krishna consciousness. Harinam Sankirtan in the streets is so joyful. And then there will be times when the mind will not be able to access that because the mind is contaminated. So yes, that time we have to apply the intelligence surely. The intelligence is guided by Guru and Shastra. So at all times, basically we are getting guided by Guru and Shastra. But in case the mind is unable to relish, we should still continue by applying the intellectual understanding of what is good for it. And that's what is the journey from Anishtita Vajan Kriya to Nishtita Vajan Kriya. Because we have anarthas, we will face lack of bliss or lack of happiness in certain situations. And on the mental platform, our feelings do not matter much. The soul is actually getting cured. Just like medicine is not about, whether you enjoy it or not. Medicine is about getting cured. So, but Krishna medicine is Keval Ananda Kanda. So usually it should give us the joy of Krishna consciousness, which is natural to it. Why Srila Prabhupada, even the hippies got mad after Krishna consciousness. It's not like he had to there to be given a lot of intellectual stuff. But Krishna consciousness has inside a very great pleasure. And that is very much accessible even to conditioned souls. So we have that opportunity.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can I ask a question too, Prabhu?
As per the guideline of, yes, Prabhuji says.
Is it okay, Ramchandra Prabhu? Do we have a few more minutes?
One Mali Pandit who can tell me.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. So Prabhuji, very nice class. I only joined in the end. I wish I had started right at 8:15. I apologize, but the story, Prabhu, that you told about the devotee who was seeing, who was becoming Krishna conscious, and Radha Gopinath Prabhu said that you're seeing what pleases Krishna everywhere. So my question is related to that. So I have a friend who started reading Bhagavad Gita, and he was the head of sales in some big company, like Cognizant or somewhere, and then he started reading Bhagavad Gita, and then he confided in me once, saying that this Bhagavad Gita I feel is making me weak, and I have to be very, in my job I need to be very, very for the lack of a better word, very brutal and very, only then I can win in my job. And
aggressive.
Somehow aggressive is a better word. Yeah, aggressive. But somehow this is making me a little. I feel it is making me a little weak. So I'm going to stop reading it. So this is what he told me, and I had nothing to, there was no way to explain it. So Prabhuji, this is it probably is a little bit related to that. Maybe what would you? how could we guide ourselves if we felt like that?
I think devotees in the Grihastha ashram can better give the wisdom on this, because they are there. Many of, like this is Mani Pandit. I'm sorry, I don't know the name. I could not recollect. Prabhupada disciple, the other Prabhuji. So maybe Grihasthas can give better wisdom. But I'm just sharing my humble thoughts. So you see, a devotee like Amrish Prabhu, he is running an industry. He's running a company. Amrish Prabhu is Alfred Ford. So he is into the company world, is into business world. But he's running a MBA program with conscious leadership. So leadership in the mode of goodness doesn't make profit at the cost of principles. Because that in the long run, doesn't give you good returns. So those who want short-term returns, they may be aggressive, but even at the cost of principles, and that's not good. So we have to make profits. Like in Vedic times also, a businessman has to say, "Aapke liye khas daam lagaya. I have given you a special price." And for every customer, he has to say that, obviously, so that he can get the customer. But it's true that he's taking double money. And of course, there is also there is a legislation in the Shastra on how much profit one can make. But he can make that legitimate profit. So in business world also, there are norms set by the Shastras. And that if we are following, then within that, like in the Indian world, there is bargaining policy. So the person who is the businessman, he will quote 2x the price. And then the person who is the customer will say X by 2. And then they will come to X. So they both know that this is the policy. So if someone may say, then why don't you just directly quote the direct price? No, that's the way. So the idea is, if you know the business world and how one can make profit, which is legitimate, which is within the dharma of the person, then that is allowed. Like if someone says 2x and then one fellow is fooled enough to get it at 2x, so that's allowed in India. while the other fellow who is a little more intelligent, he will bargain it out. So when Srila Prabhupada used to bargain like that with the sabji walas, the disciples would have chakkar, what is this? Prabhupada is bargaining like this. He is quoting 20 rupees and he's saying 5 rupees. So that's the idea. So coming back to the point of your, that businessman, so he should know what principles the Shastras say, and within that principles, he should surely make profit. It's not like he will say Trinadapi Sunichena in the gross sense, but the principle of humility should be applied in following the dharmic principles given in the Shastra there. But Bhagavad Gita is also like he's telling Arjun to win the war. So it's not like just telling you to be docile or passive. One should not be passive, one should not be aggressive, one should be assertive. That's mode of goodness. Mode of passion is not good. Mode of good ignorance is not good. Mode of goodness is required. In goodness, you can balance between courage and consideration. So maybe more can be said in detail as we go ahead, but we'll close here. I'm sorry if I spoke something untoward or improper. I seek any corrections, Manmani Pandit Prabhuji and Mukuna. I forgot the name. So I seek any corrections. Any comments, corrections? Any inputs?
No, Puri. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.